preparing to live stream the meeting on Zoom and YouTube. And I just thought, as we're waiting for, I'm so happy that you could all come early. Early is better than late, because usually we have preparing to live stream the meeting. Usually we have to postpone the meeting 10 or 15 minutes because people arrive at all different times. But in my not so humble opinion, Jai Prabhu, obeisances. Hari Prabhu, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, Bhakta Connor. Bhakta Connor and I traveled 2 years ago up in about 8 hours north of where I am right now, Sudbury, Ontario, where Shama Sundar, the astrologer, joined from, the one with Bhaktivedanta Institute, not the old Shama Sundar, but the one in Mumbai. Yeah, so he joined in Sudbury. So we went up there, and we went up to Thunder Bay, Terrace Bay. Wow. Where did we end up? Deer Lake, or was it Red Lake, Bhakta Connor?
I think one of our last stops, I think, was Thunder Bay or something, way up north. Because
we went past Thunder Bay. No. I think it was Deer Lake.
I think it was.
We were almost at Kenora. We were almost at Kenora, almost in Manitoba province, my home and native land. My Prabhu.
Okay.
Winnipeg, Manitoba. I mean Winnipeg, Manitoba. So anyway, I just thought, as we're waiting for Acyutananda Prabhu and everyone to arrive, I would sing a little bit of this, because we're reading from teachings of Lord Caitanya, Lala Samayi Prarthana by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, from his Prarthana. Gauranga bolite Pulakashari, Hari Hari bolite Nayane Babene, Gauranga bolite Pulakashari, Hari Hari bolite Nayane Babene, Arakabentair Chande Kuruna Hoibe, Sansara Bashana Mor Kabe Habetu Chabe, Arakabentair Chande Kuruna Hoibe, Arabasana Mor Kabe Chabe, Vishaya Kariya Kabe, Shuddha Habe Mana, Kabe Hamaye Rabo Sri Vrindavana. I just realized I should be sharing the screen here so everyone can follow the words. I've got the page queued up, but I'm not sharing the screen, so please forgive me for that. A lot of things on my mind all at one time, and I'm trying to do everything right, but I don't always succeed at doing that. Okay, can everyone see the words there on the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we got it.
Gauranga bolite habe Pulakasharira, Hari Hari bolite Nayane Babene, Gauranga bolite habe Pulakasharira, Hari Hari bolite Nayane Babene, Arakabenitai Chande Koruna Hoibe, Sangsara Bashana Mor Kabe Tuchahabe, Arakabenitai Chande Koruna Hoibe, Sangsara Basana Mor Kabe Tuchahabe, Visaya Chariya Kabe Sudahabe Mana, Kabe hama hirabo Sri Vrindavana Vishayacharya kabe Shudakabe manam Kabe hama hirabo Sri Vrindavana Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bujabo Se Jugala Piriti Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Habe Hama Bujabo Se Jugala Piriti Rupa Raghunatha Pade Rahu Morash Prarthana Koroye Sada Narotamadas Rupa Raghunatha Pade Rahu Morash Prarthana Koroye Sada Narotamadas. When will that opportune moment come to us, when there will be shivering of the body as soon as we chant Lord Gauranga's name? While chanting Hare Krishna, when will there be tears in the eyes? When will I obtain the mercy of Lord Nityananda Chandra? When by his mercy will the desire for material enjoyment become very insignificant? When the mind is completely purified, being freed from material anxieties and desires, then I shall be able to understand Vrindavan and the conjugal love of Radha Krishna, and then my spiritual life will be successful. When shall I be very eager to study the books left by the six Goswamis, headed by Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami? By their instruction, I shall be able to properly understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. My only aspiration is to attain the lotus feet of the six Goswamis headed by Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Narottam Das constantly prays to attain their lotus feet. And maybe the other days we can read the purports. I see there's 3 different purports here.
Yeah, there's a beautiful, you can connect it in YouTube. Prabhupada's given his own purport on the song.
Jai.
It's absolutely amazing. But he mentions that when he says in the song from Rupa Raghunatha, means the 6 from Rupa down to Raghunath Das.
Jai.
And that when we chant the name of Gauranga, will be pleasing to Nityananda. If Nityananda Prabhu is pleased, Prabhupada says, then all our material desires will become new.
That Lord Nityananda will be pleased. Lord Nityananda will be pleased if we chant the name of Gauranga.
Yes. I was, I had God, so there's a body here in Hawaii. He's very, very much bent on only Nityananda Prabhu. Man.
Who's that?
Markandeya. I don't know if you met him. He's German or Austrian devotee. He's a pujari at the temple in Honolulu. And we have a group, and it's called New Navadri Community, and Kusha Mata, she's the president now.
Local president, yeah.
Yeah. And
Acyutananda Prabhu's here. My obeisances to Acyutananda Prabhu and Krishna Chandra. We've got a new listener here with us tonight is Bhakta Connor. Bhakta Connor met, actually in 2017, Bhakta Connor had a girlfriend or at least an online girlfriend. An online love. Sorry, I don't mean to embarrass.
It didn't get very far. You're right.
And she recommended to Connor that he should read The Science of Self-Realization by Srila Prabhupada. So, what a nice girlfriend.
Was she a devotee? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
She was not, and her and I have since broken up because she kind of started along the path of every religion is equal and everybody's God, and I really got into the science of self-realization, and I was like, look, I love you. I owe you this for my spiritual life, but this is not going to work now.
Very wise.
Understand.
So we have
The
Yes.
organizations that try to unite all the religions end up creating another one.
Yes. Sounds like the Riddick.
Yes, the religion of Ritvikism.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic.
Also,
God.
Nityananda, that is parallels when Balaram goes back to Vrindavan to have his Ras Leela. It is parallel that Nityananda goes, Lord Chaitanya orders Nityananda to go back to Navadvip for the people who missed his kirtan, Gauranga's own kirtan, go back and do kirtan. And when he went back, he did Laha Gauranga, Kaha Gauranga,
Yeah.
Gauranga Namre. He said Gauranga. And then he also married Vishuddha and Janavi Devi. I don't know in which order. One man said, oh, he's some kind of sannyasi and he's getting married. And that man broke out in leprosy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's wonderful in Caitanya Charitamrita when they get together to eat, to take her to eat, to honor Prasadam, and Advaita, Sri Advaita sitting there, sitting next to each other, and the so-called insults they hurl at each other. But it's so loving, it's so wonderful. But they said nobody could understand what went between them.
So today we've had the auspicious day of Pandava Nirjala fast. How's everyone making out?
I thought I would get dry mouth, but I didn't get thirsty. And because someone else told me who has done it a few times, Loka Guru's wife, Lalita Saki, she said, it's hard to do if there's food around. So,
Right.
I got very lucky because it was my day off.
Okay.
For us, it was yesterday.
And it's very
Okay.
humid here. So I didn't get thirsty yet. You know,
I have a question for you, Acyutananda Prabhu. I'm wondering if I cheated today, because although I didn't drink any water, I went for this long forest walk and I found some rapids and I laid down in the rapids, cooling my whole body. I'm thinking, well, the skin is like the biggest organ of the body. I'm probably drinking water through my skin right now. I hope I'm not.
No.
So little.
doesn't say you can't bathe.
I've been doing pretty good myself.
How do you spell
Just-
fanatical?
Gauradas.
That's over analyzing like the baseball. Mr. Connor, did you ever unravel a baseball when you were a kid?
I never did. No,
You know what's in there?
no.
Oh, it's like 2 miles of threads and cord, and then it changes into fine thread and then big cord and on and on and on and on. And then there's a little Super Bowl inside. You ever put it back together? No. So this is overanalyzed. Or did you ever see an old watch in the back of a drawer and you try to take it apart?
Yeah, I have done that.
You ever put it back together?
Nope.
No. So don't overanalyze.
I just have a little info here to support us on our Pandava Nirjala fast. It states that during the hottest season in the northern hemisphere, if one can perform upavas without water, one is performing a great feat. I'm assuming upavas is
Yes.
means fast. Or-
Fasting.
Okay. Okay. One may take only Charnamrita and Achman water. Bhima requested one Vrat day by which he could obtain the fruits of all the other days of Vrata that he was incapable of observing. Vyasadeva advised him to follow this difficult Vrat. One should worship the Lord in the evening by bathing him in milk. On the Devadasi, one should give full pots of water to Brahmins and feed them before breaking one's fast. That's from the Padma Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is taken from Padma Purana by Vyasadeva speaking to Bhima. O son, Lord Keshava, who holds the club disc conch and lotus flower in his hand, personally told me that all of the merit achieved by fasting on whatever Ekadasis fall in 1 year can be attained by fasting on this one Ekadasi, Nirjala Ekadasi. Of this, there is no doubt. And further from Hari Bhakti Vilas, Vyasadeva says to Bhima, anyone who does not fast on this particular Ekadasi should be understood to be sinful. I'm not trying to guilt trip anyone here because I've probably missed Nirjala fast. They're understood to be corrupted and a suicidal person.
Wow.
Without.
So interesting today, Trini read to me a letter that Bhargagamuni Prabhu published, a short thing about Ekadashi. And he said that in the early days, he would go home on Ekadashi. He wouldn't come to the temple.
Who would?
Gargamuni.
Gargamuni would go home. Okay.
Yes. And then fast. And then get to the temple later. And so one day, Prabhupada said, where is Gargamuni? And he sent for him. So he came back. This is Gargamuni's, whereas maybe not verbatim, but he said, Prabhupada, no, Ekadashi is feasting. So Prabhupada proceeded to make all kinds of chutneys. He did pineapple chutney. There was, except for grains, it was a feast. And so something in his comment is that he, and Prabhupada mentioned, is that you do really what your spiritual master desires. Because it's been a point of a little bit of controversy here too among the different sanghas in Hawaii, and some, follow just no grains. Others, we do like, Bhatrini also in Nirjal, and from Gaudiya, in talking to some of the sannyasis, including Sri Narayan Maharaj, he told us one time, well, now my age, I don't fast. But, true Ekadasi is really Nirjala Ekadasi. So these are the two views on the subject. So what's interesting to see what you think, Acyutananda Prabhu, what would be the, I know you're observing Nirjala.
If you're in active service, then I was in the strictest Gaudiya mutts, and I never even heard of Nirjala Ekadasi. It was never told. But now that I'm a old, lazy, put to pasture, so I can do it.
Interesting, because Maharaj was mentioning as you get old, when you get very old, then you're not obligated to.
Yeah. And
to
little
fast.
Children.
Yes.
Little children don't have to fast. And if you're very sick.
And another thing, this Russian devotee did a little thing on how to fast. And I said, but anyhow, I got curious, and he was mentioning the day before, if you avoid grains, just eat vegetables and a drink of chia, that will give you energy, and it will be a lot easier. You won't get thirsty, like you were saying. That was one of my problems is in doing that type of fast. Is Nirjala sometimes it was a little difficult on the body. But yesterday wasn't. I didn't get thirsty. For us, it was yesterday here in Hawaii.
So that this Nirjala fast is followed from sunrise Ekadasi to sunrise on Dvadasi. And then tomorrow, at least for those of us who are still doing it, we're supposed to take our bath, and then we should find some worthy Brahmin, and we should give him some gold. If you even have any gold to give, and water.
Well, and I have gold, but the Brahmins here don't want to.
I'll take a check. No Bitcoin.
No Bitcoin.
And he should cheerfully honor prasadam with a Brahmin. So I don't have any Brahmins around here, but maybe I can do a Zoom conference and take prasadam with someone. Well, hey, a local guru is here.
Krishna Dandava Pranam.
Obeisances to all my brothers and to all the assembled devotees. Jivan Mukta is back, Jai, and our dear God sister Nanda Patni is back too, Jai. Okay, so let's see if we can. We're just got 2 paragraphs to finish in the 17th chapter. We're actually more than halfway through Teachings of Lord Caitanya. It's 32 chapters long. We're embarking on chapter 18 today. I was reading that Srila Prabhupada was working on Teachings of Lord Caitanya in San Francisco in January, February of 1968, while he was working on the Bhagavad Gita. Just a little bit of history there. Hare Krishna, Divija Gauranga Prabhu, all the way from Vancouver.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Pranam to you. I knew him as Bhakta David when he came in smiling. What are you, 6 feet tall, Divija Gauranga? What's your height?
Well, my driver's license says 188, so that's a metric system. Right? Around 6'2".
Yeah, you're tall.
I think I shrunk. I think I'm shrinking.
Yeah, me too.
Like Govardhan Hill. Okay, let's see now. Here we are. All right, I've got the book, and now I'll share the page so we can all see the screen. And let's see who's up first to bat. It's Nurhari's first iPhone DOS. iPhone Prabhu.
I'm sorry. Yes, it was on Friday. I was driving. I was trying to get into the.
Okay, well, let's start.
I think
end of chapter 17 here. Can you see the page? The impersonal speculate?
Are you asking me?
Can you start reading or not?
Yes, me.
Yes, please. You're the first.
I have chapter 18 now, and I can see it better.
We're on the last 2 paragraphs of chapter 17. We didn't quite finish it.
Okay. So the impersonalists speculate in the Supreme Personality of God and his devotees, subjected to the direct perception of knowledge. The Lord and his devotee and his devotional service, however, are not subject to direct perception. In other words, spiritual variegatedness is unknown to the Mayavadi philosophy, and therefore all the Mayavadi philosophers and sannyasis began to criticize him because he was conducting the Sankirtan movement. They were surprised to see Lord Caitanya because he belonged to the Mayavadi sect of sannyasis. Having accepted his sannyas order from Keshav Bharati, who belonged to the Mayavadi school. They were surprised to see him engage in chanting and dancing and not engage in the matter of hearing or reading Vedanta as is the custom. The Mayavadi philosophers are very fond of Vedanta and misinterpret it in their own way. The Mayavadi sannyasis, instead of understanding their own position, began to criticize Lord Caitanya as an unauthorized sannyasi. They criticized that he was sentimental and not actually a bona fide sannyasi.
Why don't you just finish the chapter.
Okay. All these criticisms were carried out to Lord Caitanya when he was at Benares, and he was not at all surprised. He smiled when the news was carried to him. He, however, did not associate with the Mayavadi sannyasis, but used to remain alone and execute his own mission. And after staying for some days in Benares, he started for Mathura.
Any comments on this or questions, please?
Vedanta, Prabhupada even once, it might still be around that, he called them codes. A sutra, it reminds me of suture, sutra is a thread. So the least amount of syllables or letters to express the greatest meaning. And it's at the end, the last one is that you will be liberated by sound. Anavriti Shabdat. And Vedavyas ends at the last sutras, Anavriti Shabdat twice. Anavriti Shabdat. Sounds like kirtan, repeating and repeating. That's given there. And the Vedantas jump on some of the Upanishads and Vedanta because the personified Vedas tell Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna is pleased when we describe him in abstract terms. And I give this example a lot. I love to talk like that. We do that also. We say POTUS. What's a POTUS?
President of the United
It's
States.
the United States. We say the Oval Office. We say the Hill, the Capitol.
Okay.
See, so we mean the president. We mean there's people in there. I always like to say the Oval Office responded to the Kremlin. So a room talks to a building, and the Mayavadis will run with stuff like that. So in Sanskrit, the absolute truth. That's a description. That's called a Gona name of Krishna. It describes him, the all-powerful, the all sarva, tat, that what, that ultimate, that they don't like to say Krishna. But this is how we know. Once then Narad Muni comes to Veda Vyas and says, so you think you've completed everything, you've written Mahabharata and now Vedanta Sutra, and you're still depressed. Why? Because you have not written a real commentary on what all of these vague abstract terms mean. So you must write Srimad Bhagavatam. Then in Samadhi, Bhakti Samadhi, he saw Krishna, the absolute truths, the Vaikuntha planets, and behind Krishna also the material nature, its workings. So then he writes Bhagavatam. Now for pronunciation, it's Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Americans, because when it's written in English, it looks like Bhagavatam, and that makes Sanskrit pundits cringe when you say Bhagavatam. They hate that. But the disciple, the first or son, the successor of someone, the first vowel is made long. So Bhagavan, the devotee is Bhagavat. He's a Mahabhagavat. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, his disciple is Saraswati Devi. Saraswati, you make that long. King Arthur, his father was Uther, and his name is Arthur. It's still intact in that kind of grammar.
Nice.
Before
one more point is called.
Word.
One more point is this is called all the Vedas, which don't directly. It's called Gona. It describes his qualities, but not directly his personality. That's called Arundhati Nyaya. Arundhati, Nyaya. Arundhati is the name of a star near the Big Dipper. And the way you tell someone, if you just point there, say, look at that star, you go, well, there's a million stars up there. Okay, look at the big star over there and look at the next star. And you see the star next to that, that's Arundhati. So there are indicators and the intended. The intended is Krishna. The indicators are all these other things leading up to direct and focus your vision. I'm done. Okay, next.
Very nice delineation.
Or like the moon and the trees.
That's for Krama, the Saka Chandran Nyaya, that you give simple examples in the beginning. But all of these abstract terms are to attract Gyanis. And also to give Jiva Goswami especially wrote, and Bhaktisiddhanta, you read his English, he writes that way in Bengali. Whereas the autocratic delineation of the supreme, so obviously everyone who reads that, because we dance and sing like Lord Caitanya, they may not take it seriously. So the books of the Goswamis, especially Jiva Goswami, then the commentaries, are written in the finest, highest Sanskrit presentation.
You actually can't even find some of the words that Bhaktisiddhanta used to write in. They don't even exist in the dictionary anymore.
And what's a moiety?
Yeah, the moiety.
What's
That's
a
right.
moiety?
Yeah, what is a moiety? Tell me.
I think it means a couple absolute. Kind of, I shouldn't you be debating that. I think it means, but I don't know. I can't find it.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a copy of Brahma Samhita
Yeah.
by Bhaktisiddhanta, and wow. Yes.
So obviously,
Right.
anybody who sees that will say, this is not some Sahajiya dancing and it commands dignity and respect.
Before he passed away, our godbrother Suhotra Prabhu, Suhotra Swami, he was working with Bhakti Vidyapurna Swami. The two of them in Mayapur were giving I don't know if it was actually translating Vedanta Sutra, but they were studying it and they were giving classes on it, and they were going to produce a book on Vedanta Sutra.
Yeah. And the point is that we don't really need a commentary. This came up when I've heard Ramananda Sampradaya or Ramanuja Sampradaya challenged Vishwanath Chakrabarti of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. You're not a real Sampradaya because every real Sampradaya has to have a commentary on Vedanta. So Vishwanath Chakrabarti at that time was very old, and he delegated to Baladev Vidyabhushan to compose it, and he came to Vrindavan. The debate was in Jaipur. He came to, sat next to the Govinda deity, and overnight he wrote the whole commentary.
Wow.
See?
Wow.
So,
Prabhu Acyutananda, Prabhu. I have a question. It might be.
but it's one more thing. It's really not necessary. We hadn't written the commentary because Srimad Bhagavatam is called always the natural commentary to Vedanta. What?
So it wasn't Govinda Bhasya, the natural comment. I mean, it's not natural is we know is Srimad Bhagavatam, but Prabhupada dedicates the Bhagavad Gita to Baladev Vidyabhusana.
When I was with Prabhupada in Delhi, he was always reading this Gita, and it just said Baladev on the top. He was always reading that Baladev Vidyabhusana Gita commentary.
What year was this, Prabhu Acyutananda Prabhu?
Do you have some wind chime?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me hold on.
Do you have a hammer?
Yeah. I found moiety.
Moiety, what's a moiety?
Yeah, each of two parts into which a thing is or can be divided. The tax was to be delivered in two moieties.
Yeah, it's one of two equal parts.
Okay.
It's like simultaneously one and different.
Yeah.
And in anthropology, each of two social or ritual groups into which a people is divided, especially among Australian Aboriginal people and some North American Indians. A synonym for moiety is component, part, constituent, portion. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it seems to be in a lot of these older, uses from days gone by. It seems to have a lot of connection to payment of money, or estate, or portion of equal portions.
The strong sense that I get out of it is that it's referring to a whole of which a moiety is an intrinsic part, but it cannot be. It could be considered in a separate way, but it's also not separable.
Yeah, that's a really old explanation. It's St. Paul dividing the body of the Church of Christ into two moieties, nameth the one part. That was 1597.
I think its third chapter is called Purusha Shukta Confirmed. The Purusha Shukta is from the Rig Veda. Sahasrashirja Purusha, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapada, and there's like a universal form. And then it says how the demigods divided it. But and the impersonalists, also karma kandiyas, they love that. They think, oh, it's separate. Krishna's chain, he's become the whole universe, pantheism. No, we have Isopanishad, Purnameva Vishishyate. You can divide him up and he is still complete in the balance.
Yeah.
Acyutananda, sorry, I just wanted to say, would you please start the next chapter for us, Acyutananda Prabhu?
The impersonalist speculator.
Conversation.
Okay. Chapter 18, Conversations with Prakasananda. According to the principles of the Mayavadi sannyasis, singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments are strictly prohibited, for they are considered to be sinful activities. The Mayavadi sannyasi is simply supposed to engage in the study of Vedanta. Therefore, when the Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares saw that Lord Chaitanya was indulging in singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, and always chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, they concluded that he was not educated and that out of sentiment he was misleading his followers. Shankaracharya's injunction was that a sannyasi should always study Vedanta, and that he should be satisfied by simply having one cloth and nothing more. Because Lord Chaitanya neither studied Vedanta formally nor ceased from singing and dancing, he was criticized by all the sannyasis at Benares, as well as by their householder followers.
Even in some Christian sects, dancing, etc., is very much frowned upon, as if it's like something not to be done.
Yeah, Prabhupada's godbrother Bon Maharaj went to Germany, and he met Hitler. He met Goebbels.
Wow.
I was told, even he didn't know at that time. He said, I shook hands with Hitler, and he just sent me off to be with some secretary. And then in his book about this, he showed the picture of Joseph Goebbels.
Wow.
Wow. And so, and Goebbels said, we don't have any need for your high ideals, but at the beginning and end of every lecture, you have to say Heil Hitler. He says, okay.
Wow.
But he said he also spent a few days at a German monastery. And at the end, a few days, the abbot asked him, what did you think? He says, I think this is a house of ghosts. Nobody talks. There's men in black just walking through the halls together. Nobody talks. Even when you're eating, nobody. He says, in my ashram, somebody's singing, somebody's laughing, somebody's crying, somebody's yelling. There's activity. So
Life.
the Mayavadis want to make everything silent.
Krishna Chandra.
But can I make one comment before we move on?
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Just that point about being the dancing being frowned upon by Christians. It's kind of interesting because Psalm 150 verses 4 and 5, it says, praise him with timbrel and dancing, praise him with the clash of cymbals, praise him with resounding cymbals. And of course, that's
what King David did, and is Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And the interest in Islam, the same. You have sects like Taliban. They were killing people if they were caught listening to music or dancing. But then you have the Sufis,
yes,
of India, who dance and sing.
True.
Krishna Chandra Prabhu, could you read the next paragraph?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Prabhu. Moment. When Lord Chaitanya received news of this criticism from his students and disciples, he simply smiled and started for Mathura and Vrindavan. When he returned to Benares on his way from Mathura to Jagannath Puri, he stayed at the house of Chandrasekhar, who was considered a Shudra because he was a clerk. In spite of this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his residence at his home. Lord Chaitanya made no distinctions between Brahmanas and Shudras. He accepted anyone who was devoted. Customarily, a sannyasi is supposed to take shelter and eat in the home of a Brahmana. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead, used his own discretion and decided to stay at Chandrasekhar's house.
We just looked up in the Gauragana Dashadipika, Chandrasekhar is Uddhava.
Oh, wow.
I would just like to make a comment. I'm really impressed how Lord Chaitanya, even though he's being ridiculed and put down as a sentimentalist, he just smiles instead of like, how dare you? Don't you know who I am? Gauranga Mahaprabhu. I'm an incarnation of Krishna. How dare you criticize? He just smiled and carried on to Mathura. I'm just thinking what a perfect example that is of, you know, Trinadapi and being Atmarama.
Gira.
Personality of
He
Godhead.
gets even with the, when he sits, it'll come up in the text that he sits outside. He's called in for a debate and he sits down in the footbath area. But from inside, they see the Brahmajyoti come out. That's what every Mayavadi wants. Not even they want to merge. They want to glow like, oh boy, he's glowing. Oh boy, that's what we want. And then Lord Chaitanya tricked him into doing some service. Prakasananda extends his hand, come inside, please.
Gives him a
So
seat.
then he did some service, not like get out.
Yeah, he gives him a seat.
Yeah, okay.
He's like a father with his children who are a little naughty.
Exactly.
Doesn't take it serious.
So I had a question before, if you don't mind. And one was about if I don't know what year Acyutananda Prabhu you traveled with Srila Prabhupada. You probably mentioned it, but I got the last of the conversation.
67.
Oh, so you got an opportunity then to meet Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Maharaj?
Yes.
And what was your impression on the relationship between Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Pragyan?
You had to be there. It was the cure for Kanishta. It was the cure for Kanishta, that there are other Mahabhagavats.
Exactly.
It's got Tilak, neck beats, and Narayan Maharaj was there. We calculated he was about 47 years old in 67. Also,
Right.
Bhakti Vedanta, neck beats, Tilak, bead bag, Tattva. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj was very ill, and he looked towards me and he said, there are two kinds of sounds, material sounds and Vaikuntha sounds. When we make material sounds, we get material things. And when we make Vaikuntha sounds, we get Vaikuntha things.
Wow.
Right. That's why we like hanging out with you, Acyutananda Prabhu, because we want Vaikuntha things.
Make Vaikuntha sound, but sound trickles down to everything. And Sridhar Maharaj would always say, the real truth must be coming down, not that we speculate up inductive reasoning, but to follow what is coming down from Paravyoma.
There is that article by Sridhar Maharaj about the descent of the holy name.
Yes.
Excellent article. It was in the BTG.
Yeah.
I was just today reading from Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja book. I have one, I think it's 2012, and there was a part in the introduction that said the way to going up in Krishna consciousness is to go down, as in going down in offering dandavats, being humble, straw on the street, as well as the fact that everything we need has come down from the disciplic succession. Don't speculate upwards.
Nice.
By the way, I wrote that.
I lost you.
You wrote that.
No, I wrote the Descent to the Holy Neck.
Excellent article.
Is it being told that it's, I mean, he wrote it in the sense that after a few months, I composed it as an article. I was nervous to send it back to Godhead because they're, Prabhupada only. But they did print it, and Karanda also read it on the radio. And I told that, I mentioned that Sridhar said, "Did you write an article about?" I said, "Yes." And it was also spoken on the American radio. And he goes, very happy. He could not go to the West. His health was poor and so on. And so he pushed, like Prabhupada was his only hope to. And so in this way, sending his article and then being on the radio, he had a foot in the West.
Right.
So he
Loka Guru Prabhu, could you just lower your screen a bit? Because we only see you from your eyes up.
Well, I'm trying to
Right, that's
maintain
better.
a low
That's better.
profile.
Because you're a humble devotee, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're up
was-
next, Prabhu. Yes, sorry.
okay.
What?
Thunderbox.
You were what? You were
Nothing.
what?
No.
Okay. You were trying to get lower than the straw on the street.
Yeah, it wasn't working, but I was giving it a shot.
What did Prabhupada say? Imitation of a good thing is also a good thing.
Yeah. But he also said, some devotee asked him, Srila Prabhupada, how can we become enthusiastic for Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada's answer was, by acting enthusiastically.
By acting that way. Yeah. Okay, here.
Although we don't want to
Sorry.
take on the philosophy of fake it until you make it.
That's for cool.
That's for politicians.
Came across a very interesting quote by Srila Bhaktivinoda about that. I'd like to share it if I can find it, but it's very interesting.
Okay, why don't you look it up? In the meantime, Loka Guru Prabhu, in those days?
Okay, in those days, by misuse of the Brahminical hereditary principle, the Brahmins made it a law. Huh?
Oh, I guess, okay, we're reading different editions because here it says heritage and you have hereditary. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Well, I'm reading from 1968.
Okay.
I figured, what the heck?
Yeah, sure.
So
It's
in
probably-
those days, by misuse of the Brahminical hereditary principle, the Brahmins made it a law that anyone who was not born of a Brahmin family was a Shudra. So even the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas were also called Shudras. The Vaishyas are supposed to be descendants of Brahmin fathers and Shudra wives, and therefore they are sometimes called Shudras. So Chandrasekhar Acharya, although born of a Vaishya family, was called at Benares a Shudra. As long as Lord Caitanya stayed at Benares, he stayed at Chandrasekhar's apartment, and he used to take his food at the place of Tapan Mishra.
Interesting, because here in this purport, instead of saying Vaishya, it says Vaidyas.
Yeah, a Vaidya is an Ayurvedic doctor.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, then I was assuming that it was a misprint because
No,
I've seen it before.
Vaishya is correct.
It is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, there.
there's really no such thing as a Vaidya family.
Right.
Others can study Ayurveda and become.
This must be like Pumundi,
Yeah,
Fumunde.
So yours is more accurate.
Well, mine said the same. It said Vaidya.
Oh, it says
Yeah.
Vaidya. Okay.
I
Yeah,
just assumed it was a misprint.
And
Oh.
the funny thing is, too, is Vedabase uses Prabhupada's latest editions of the books, and I have the original one that Lokaguru Das has, and they both say Vaidya.
Yeah.
I have
Strange.
Anyways,
mean-
continue when Sanatan Goswami.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
go ahead.
When Sanatana Goswami met Lord Chaitanya at Benares, he learned from Lord Chaitanya process and principles of devotional service during 2 months of continuous teaching. The instructions of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami have been described in our first part of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. After that teaching, Sanatana Goswami was authorized to propagate the principles of devotional service and the Srimad Bhagavatam. But during this time, both Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar Acharya were feeling very sorry about strong criticism against Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they came together and prayed for the Lord to meet the Mayavadi sannyasis.
Any comments or questions? Well, devotees are we're supposed to feel sorry when we hear another Vaishnav is being denigrated.
Yeah.
That's why it's sometimes painful to be on Facebook, the way some devotees get dragged through the mud.
Yeah, it is painful. Sometimes you have to stand up and defend, even though you don't want to say certain things.
Yeah.
Two verses. Go ahead.
I was going to say Prabhupada once said this, I don't even know who he said it to. I heard this recently from Palaka Prabhu. He said, take a stand. Prabhupada said, you have to take a stand.
Kavi Chandraswami told me, don't wrestle with pigs because the pigs will love it and you'll just get dirty.
Two verses are there. Vaishnava Jati Buddhi Narakaye. And if you consider a Vaishnava as by caste, you're in hell. And the other one that the Brahmins really hate is Rakshasin Kalimasrita Jayanti Brahmajonishu. Rakshasas get born in Brahmin families in Kali Yuga.
Yeah, they hate that one.
Oh, they hate that.
That's from Jaiva Dharma also.
But it's a no.
Yeah.
And why? Why do they take birth in those families in this age?
Oh, that's the perfect way to mess up Dharma.
Bingo.
The Brahmins will talk nonsense. They are Rakshasas.
And it'll be accepted.
Yeah.
Divija Garanga Prabhu, you're up next. We have been mortified.
I don't think, yeah, there it is.
Are you there? Vijay Garanga?
Yes. Sorry, am I reading?
We have been mortified.
Sorry, could you maybe go to someone else? I was just looking up the what I was mentioning before. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, Krishna
wasn't
Chandra
looking.
next. Krishna Chandra. No, you read already, Krishna Chandra.
I have, yes.
Yeah, so Nanda Patni, please. Are you muted?
Nanda Patni Mataji.
Here we go. We have been mortified by hearing unfavorable criticisms from the Mayavadi sannyasis against you, they informed Lord Chaitanya. Indeed, it has become intolerable for us. They requested the Lord to do something so that these criticisms would be stopped. While they were discussing this subject, a Brahmin came to Lord Chaitanya and invited him to his home. All the sannyasis, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been invited, and now the Brahmin came to invite him. Knowing that the Lord did not mix with Mayavadi sannyasis, the Brahmin fell down at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet and implored him, although I know that you do not accept invitations, I still implore you to come and take prasadam at my home with the other sannyasis. If you accept this invitation, I will consider it a special favor.
Siddhanta Prabhu, the next paragraph is short, if you want to do the next two.
Yeah.
The Lord took this opportunity. Okay, stop. The Lord took this opportunity and accepted the Brahmin's invitation. Okay, stop clicking up and down.
I'm not doing anything.
It's disconcerting. The Lord took this opportunity and accepted the Brahmin's invitation in order to meet the Mayavadi sannyasis. Actually, this was an arrangement made by the Lord himself. Although the Brahmin who invited him knew that the Lord did not accept any invitations, he was still very eager to invite him. The next day, Lord Caitanya went to the house of the Brahmin and saw that all the Mayavadi sannyasis were sitting there. He offered his respects to all the sannyasis, as was customary, and then went to wash his feet. After washing, he sat down at that spot, a little distance from the other sannyasis. While he was sitting there, the sannyasis saw a glaring effulgence emanating from his body. Attracted by his glaring effulgence, all the Mayavadi sannyasis stood up and showed him their respects. Among them was a sannyasi named Prakasananda Saraswati. He was the chief among the impersonalist sannyasis, and he addressed Lord Caitanya with great humility, asking him to come and sit among them.
Interesting to see how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's purity, his effulgence, in of itself was attracting people, attracting the hard-hearted Mayavadis to him.
Yeah, I was thrown off by the second sentence there in the second paragraph. He offered his respects to all the sannyasis, and as was customary, he then went to wash his feet. So I was thinking that, well, the other sannyasis are going to wash his feet, but he washed his own feet.
Yeah. The Mayavadi Shankaracharya established 10 names in rank also of sannyasis. Saraswati is the highest name. Then Tirtha and the rest come down. So Bharati is about 5th or 6th in order.
Everybody hears the
top
times.
minister of the communist.
10 names for the Mayavadis?
Dasanam Sampradaya. Did everyone hear what I said before? The highest title is Saraswati.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and Bharati was halfway down.
Yeah.
There's some noise coming in from somebody. I don't know who's.
I close the door, there's no longer chimes.
Yeah, we're getting some unusual
Some people are talking in the back.
sound vibrations are coming in. Okay, sorry, folks. I have to find.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, there is, while I was in Vrindavan, a godbrother was telling me that Prabhupada they're saying that Prabhupada belongs to the Kayasta community, the Sudra community.
Huh. Prabhupada's godbrothers?
And
No.
Baba Tarini. No, this is, my godbrother was talking about somebody now in Vrindavan, one of the, devotees there, or, Vaishnavas there in the community in Vrindavan. He lives there, he has a house, so he was telling me, I forget now who, it's not an R, maybe it's Gaudiya, but none of the sannyasis that we know. Anyhow, they said, by the way, they're saying Prabhupada belongs to the Kayasta community. And yesterday, Baba Tarini, she's here right now. She, was talking that she remembered how when she served Pishima, and Prabhupada mentioned this too, that actually as a joke, he said, you might say you're descending from the monkeys, but I descend from Gautama.
I descend from what? Your voice breaks up. You may say you're descending from monkeys, but what?
the theory of Darwin, we
Yes.
descend from the monkey.
Yes.
Prabhu said, no, well, you might descend from the trees like monkeys, but I descend from Gautama, from the great sages.
Oh.
So she got bombarded by, by this Indian people, whoever it was there, mostly Indian, that, oh, you don't know anything about Gautama, or I disagree with you, or that Prabhupada is a Kayasta, is a Sudra, and like that. So I was wondering if Acyutananda Prabhu, you heard anything about this?
Yes, so is Ramananda Roy.
That's right.
That's what we said.
And that's what we told them in the commentary. And now Lord Chaitanya, has so many of his intimate disciples.
If he's thinking that Prabhupada is something lower because of caste, then he's in hell.
Yes, like you've mentioned that verse. And pure devotees, never insult. What was it in the 11th canto? You probably know this verse. We said, never insult I am the Acharya, Krishna said. Never take him to be an ordinary human being. And so to try to, like you said, that verse, there are two verses you mentioned. To consider a Vaishnava belonging to any caste is offensive.
It's hellish.
Srila Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family.
Yeah.
That's not what the problem really was. Someone posted in the Vaishnava humor, the Sapta Rishis, and there was a picture of 7 sages with top knots, and people were joking about how they liked the hairstyle. And so I said, actually, Srila Prabhupada descends from one of the rishis, Gautam. And immediately, who told you that? And then people said, Prabhupada was a Kayasta, or, he was a Sudra. And other people said, well, even he was beyond that. He was better than a Brahmin. So everyone agreed with that. And then I said, the way I heard it was Srila Prabhupada stating, when people said, we come from the monkeys, that he came from the great sages. And when I was personally taking care of Pishinoff, and all the family members were there, they told me that they were descendants of Gautam, and Pishima named her grandson Gautam. He was 3 years old. So I put that, and then someone came back with me that, did Prabhupada's wife have to suffer like Ahalya?
My God.
I said after that, I said, well, I was just sharing something that for followers of Srila Prabhupada is nectar to hear. And
we only see the top of your head. I'm sorry. We just see the.
Okay, it was it's on the level of Guru Kata. But since everyone is so argumentative, I'm not going to discuss it anymore.
Everyone should live in India for at least a year. There's a common name several common names in Shudra Bengal, Gupta, and Das Gupta and Sen Gupta. Gupta means secret. That's where we get the word secretary. You can be Das Gupta. You can be Das Gupta. You can be Das Gupta and be Secretary of State. Sen Gupta. Sen means Sena, means military. Sen Gupta means you're a military secretary of the military. You're not cleaning the dishes,
Or does it mean also hidden, like Gupta Vrindavan?
Yes, but the interpret. Yes, it means secret, but that's where we get the word secretary. Secretary keeps secrets.
Oh.
Interesting. On this note, I don't mean to digress, but I'm just thinking it's related to it. How one popular sannyasi is known to have said that Srila Prabhupada is not a Nitya Siddha, but he's a Sadhana Siddha. And some godbrothers are disturbed to hear this, that with all that Prabhupada accomplished, but then that well-known sannyasi was saying, it doesn't make any difference. But if it doesn't make any difference, then why distinguish? I mean, indirectly, it sounds like a minimization of Srila Prabhupada. I'm wondering if you can make a comment on this, Acyutananda Prabhu.
Sridhar Maharaj told me I consider him a Shakti Avesh avatar.
Jai.
Yeah. Question to ask would be, how does he know?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, what's, you know, how do you know this?
Well, he told me. Sorry.
No, I was in it. Even Venu Prabhupada mentions that it's an invested with power. So even Hitler could be considered a Shaktavich. If somebody that does an extraordinary, has the power to do something extraordinary.
Tell him what Srila Prabhupada said when he was asked, when did you remember Krishna? And you told me.
Well, Prabhupada was asked this. I think, I don't know if it was Shamarani or Javani, that there was ever a time, Srila Prabhupada, I think it's actually in the tapes, Siddhanta Prabhu, you probably might remember this. And they asked the question, this disciple asked the question, was there any time when did you ever first thought of Krishna? And Prabhupada said, I don't think there's ever a time that I didn't.
He didn't say, I don't think he said there was never a
There
time.
was never a time.
Yeah.
That was, at least one story was with Karandar and Hridayananda in the room. And Prabhupada said, never was there a time that all these things, that I was doing these things, you know, way back when. And Prabhupada
Doing
asked
Ratha
them,
Yatra, worshiping deity.
yeah, all that. And then Prabhupada asked the two of them, he said, do you understand?
Yeah.
And they were baffled. They couldn't say anything. And then Prabhupada asked him again. And then he repeated himself. Hridayananda said that Prabhupada repeated himself. All these things I was doing since childhood. He said, do you understand? So they got the point that Prabhupada was not an ordinary human being. I mean, he was a human being, but
not a submissivity.
Disciple has to consider the words of the spiritual master as God. Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastri. Consider him.
It's the attitude that's being addressed. If there's a challenge, then certainly the enlightened soul is going to understand where the question's coming from. It's not just like a innocent question.
Right. So then the verse Tadvidi Pranipratana Sevaya, how to approach the pure devotees, service and humble attitude. So like you said, I mean, it's a question of attitude.
And just as a conclusion, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, just as a conclusion to Hridayananda's story was that he commented, his realization was that after Prabhupada said it like that the second time, do you understand? That Hridayananda, his comment was that was clearly the case. The mood and the way that Prabhupada expressed himself, he wanted to get across to the point to them that he was the spiritual master and he's always known Krishna. That was his realization, that was clearly the point and clearly the fact.
Do you remember the context? Was it because there was some doubt or something, or what was the context?
I'll tell you the exact story if you want, but go ahead with something else and I'll find it.
Okay, Connor, you haven't read a paragraph. Would you like to read one, please?
I would be honored to, yes.
Start with my dear sir, and just read to the end of you belong to our Maya body.
Okay, so just so you guys know, it might be a bit different on the screen.
This is Prakasananda. This is Prakasananda Saraswati speaking to Lord Caitanya.
Yes. He said, my dear sir, why are you sitting in that filthy place? Please come and sit with us. Lord Caitanya replied, oh, I belong to an inferior sect of sannyasis. Therefore, I think I should not sit down with you. Let me sit down here. Prakasananda Saraswati was surprised to hear such a thing from such a learned man, and he actually took his hand and requested him to please come and sit down with him. Lord Chaitanya was seated, and Prakasananda Saraswati inquired, I think your name is Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and I understand that you belong to our Mayavadi sect because you have taken your sannyas from Kesha Bharati, who belongs to the Shankara Sampradaya. Keep going.
Nitya Lila.
I have the reference if
please.
you want it before
Yeah.
we go too far.
Yeah, what's
Yes,
this?
18th chapter.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Okay, you asked. Okay, this is Hridayananda Goswami. These are his words. Karandar and I were in Prabhupada's room in the early 70s. It was a beautiful afternoon. A breeze was blowing, the sun was setting, and golden rays were shining on Prabhupada. It was a sublime atmosphere. Prabhupada began to talk about India at the turn of the century. He explained how people used to work, the relationships between the householders and their servants, and how people used to cook. He took us back to his early childhood when he was having Ratha Yatra and worshiping Radha Govinda. Then he looked at us very strongly and said, whatever I'm doing now, I was doing then. Do you understand? Hridayananda said, we were speechless. Prabhupada said, never was there a time when I did not know Krishna. Do you understand? He said it in such a way that it was clearly the case. That was a very powerful experience.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
That's
Yeah,
in the first chapter of the memories. If you,
it seems very speculative to say, I mean, I don't want to offend that reputed sannyasi either, but to me, I mean, how I feel I'm putting my foot in my mouth here. I don't want to be critical of this sannyasi because I have affection for him, but I had a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that Prabhupada was a sadhana siddha and not a nitya siddha. But the argument is, well, it's all absolute. They're both the same.
well, if you can't give a reference higher than his own speculation, then it's mental
Exactly.
speculation.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
I think we can take a clue from Srila Prabhupada, who, in his mood of reciprocation with that, how he dealt with it.
Mhm.
Right.
Being very affirmative.
Yeah, I mean, he laid it down.
I hope that I can be reborn in a Vaishnava family and not have to go through 12, 18 years of public school.
Yes.
It was, they say it goes by so fast, your childhood. No, it didn't. It was boring as hell. It was endless.
It's true.
Endless.
It's true.
And Prabhupada called them slaughterhouses. He called
Yeah.
modern education.
Yeah.
Today they would have put me on all kinds of pills.
Oh, yeah. A lot of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not focused. He's drifting. He's fidgeting.
Looking out the window.
Or I was looking. Yes.
What window? Nowadays, they don't have windows.
Look out the window like, get me out of here. But and that's why I always tell the young children here also, I said, you are way ahead of me to be born. And even I told a lady who was sad because she had a miscarriage. I said, don't, that child hears Harinam in the womb and they're taken before they can come out and have any chance to commit any sin or aparad, any offenses, or get entangled in Maya. And if they're hearing Harinam in the womb, they'll go back to Godhead.
Wow, thank you for mentioning that. I was doing my japa walk through a forest today, and a lady was just coming out with her baby. And actually, I should have asked her, do you mind if I say a mantra that will help to protect your child? But instead,
that's risky.
That's risky.
Risky business.
I talked about how sattvic the forest was, and she agreed, and she said she comes there to get away from the EMFs of the computer. And I told her what a good mom she was, but actually I watered it down. I should have said, please repeat the Hare Krishna mantra for the liberation of your child. But then I don't know how she would have taken it.
And then the kid died.
No.
But that's Hridayananda's story also. He was walking some city, and when he was in sannyas dress also, and some old man said, "Ah, what is this? You're a cult here." They said, blah, blah, blah. And Hridayananda said, "You are going to die." Now he was talking like death is for everyone. He said, "You are going to die." And the guy goes, "Ah." He walks past him, trips over his feet, cracks his head, dead.
What?
Yep,
Kaboom.
I heard that.
What?
With Ananda walking, and this old man was insulting him.
That's like a curse almost like a curse.
You're going to die.
Nichalila, would you like to read the next paragraph, please? According to the Shankara sect. Nichalila?
Go to Haribo, go to Haribo.
According to the Shankara sect, there are 10 different types of sannyasis. Out of them, 3 names, Tirtha, Ashrama, and Saraswati, are given to the sannyasis considered to be the most enlightened and cultured. Since Lord Caitanya was a Vaishnava, he was naturally humble and meek, and he wanted to give the better sitting place to Prakasananda, who belonged to the Saraswati Sampradaya. According to Shankara's principles, a brahmachari of the Bharati school is called Caitanya. However, although Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyasas, he kept his brahmachari name and did not take up
The title of Bharati.
What happened?
She accidentally
muted.
muted herself.
Any comment on this, Acyutananda Prabhu?
No, that's
Use
just
names.
what I said.
Right.
You can look up a
Shiva-
list of the Dasanami Sampradaya and see where Bharati is. It's it's below. There's Puri, Van. See, Van Maharaj, that's a Bengali transcription of Van, Vana, forest. Van, V-A-N. But in Bengali, they made it B-O-N. Van, but it's Vanma, one of the Dasanams. Giri, Parvat, Saraswati, Puri, all the Rama Krishna mission sannyasis are Puris. It's like Madhavendra Puri.
Madhavendra Puri.
Mananda.
We have Lakshmi Tirtha too.
Tirtha,
Ishvara Puri.
that's mentioned here, but I don't know all three. Aranya. Yeah. Okay.
Prabhu, is there any description of how the pecking order of like the Saraswati became the best? Is there any how did the order get established? These are the better ones.
Because there are connotations for it. Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge and learning. Tirtha means a holy place. Ashram means ashram. Puri means that they should stay in towns, and Van means they should stay in forests, but they don't. These are just. But you can look up Dasanam Sampradaya on Google and see if there's what the hierarchy is, because the Vaishnava sannyasis are given those 10 names plus 108 names. One of those 108 names is Swami.
Yes, like Prabhupada.
Yes. And
Yes.
Goswami. So they're given a descriptive title. Keshav Maharaj, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, given that name from Sridhar Maharaj. And he said, I want to start a sampradaya of everyone named Bhakti. Actually, he said he first wanted to name them all Bhakti Siddhanta. And then a title. And Sridhar Maharaj and others discussed it and said, that is our Guru Maharaj's name. Let's pick something else. So they said, okay, Bhakti Vedanta. And so it'd be Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Maharaj, Bhakti Vedanta Trivikram Maharaj, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you.
Arkamuni showed us the certificate where Srila Prabhupada was given the name Siddhanta. A letter. Sannyas. because there's
But he was called Bhaktivedanta
they
before
say
sannyasi.
that he was given the title Bhaktivedanta before he took sannyas. And so when he became sannyas, he'd already been given that title. But one time in Vrindavan, Gargamuni Prabhu showed us a paper where Prabhupada was given the title Bhaktisiddhanta. So do you know anything about that?
No, I've seen that, but that name
Was that before Srila Prabhupada accepted sannyas or after?
Yes, before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
that
I
was
heard that the
that,
title of yeah. Go
that
ahead.
prac-
Sorry.
that practice was discontinued, and that no one should be called Bhaktisiddhanta. It's like no one should be called Mahaprabhu. We asked Prabhupada, can we call you Thakur? He said, after my death, oh my God, brothers will faint. They didn't like Prabhupada.
When my second
This
son
is not like.
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, just no. It's just that in Gaudiya Math, I went to in Puri, near Ekachak. No,
Chakleshwar.
it's a Chakratirtha, where the
Your voice is
breaking up. We can hardly understand you.
Okay, so when I went to one of the Gaudiya Math's places, some devotees there, they're very upset about. They were.
We can't understand. We can't understand you.
You're breaking.
Maybe it's my phone. Maybe my internet. Sorry about that.
Maybe talk closer to it.
And I don't know if. Yeah.
Put your voice closer to the mic.
I was as close.
No.
Anyhow, some of the.
They can hear.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you now. You want to try again?
Well, we were in Puri, and I went over to Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj's mission temple, and they asked me, "Who are you?" And I said, "We're disciples of Srila Prabhupada." Who would know this? There's only one Prabhupada. So yes, I didn't take too well to Prabhupada, but once that, why wouldn't I honor it?
Yeah, your voice is breaking up really bad. Tom Prabhu, you haven't read yet.
Okay. I'll read.
Well, sir.
Well, sir, Prakasananda Saraswati continued, you belong to our Shankara sect and you are living in Benares, so why don't you mix with us? What is the reason? Another thing, you are a sannyasi and are supposed to engage simply in the study of the Vedanta, but we see that instead you are always engaged in chanting and dancing and playing musical instruments. What is the reason? These are the activities of emotional and sentimental people, but you are a qualified sannyasi. Why not engage in the study of the Vedanta? By your effulgence, it appears to us that you are just like the Supreme Narayana, the personality of Godhead, but by your behavior you appear to be otherwise. So we are inquisitive to know why you act in this way.
Yeah, the Mayavadis call each other Narayan. Namo Narayan. Oh, it's terrible. They once said it to me. It was some Mayavadi looked at me, he goes, Namo Narayan. I looked over my shoulder, well, who? Me? It's like, by the way, Mormons call each other saints.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
No, either.
Jivan Mukta Prabhu, are you able to read? Jivan Mukta Prabhu?
Sure.
Okay, great. Where are we now? It's a short paragraph, so why don't you read the short one and the longer one?
My dear sir, Lord Chaitanya replied,
My spiritual master considered me a great fool. Therefore, he has more or less punished me by saying that because I am such a fool, I have no capacity to study the Vedanta. So he kindly gave me the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My spiritual master told me, just go on chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. It will make you all perfect. Actually, Lord Chaitanya was neither foolish nor ignorant of the principles of the Vedanta. His purpose was to demonstrate to modern society that fools who have no history of penance and austerity should not try to study the Vedanta just for some recreational purpose. In his Shikshastika, Lord Chaitanya said that one should be in a humble state of mind, should think himself lower than the grass on the street, should be more tolerant than a tree, and should be devoid of all sense of prestige and ready to offer all kinds of respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the Vedanta philosophy or the holy name of God constantly. The Lord also wanted to teach that a serious student of transcendental science should exactly follow the words of the spiritual master. According to the calculations of the spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya appeared to be a fool. Therefore, he said that he should not indulge in the study of the Vedanta, but should continue chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Lord Chaitanya strictly obeyed this order. In other words, Lord Chaitanya impressed on the Mayavadis that the words of a bona fide spiritual master must be strictly followed. One who does so becomes perfect in all respects.
Comments?
Jai-ho, Jai-ho.
I like the fact a lot that even though we know that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he says that his spiritual master called him a fool, even though he knows all the Vedanta, he went to all of this effort just to prove the order of the spiritual master should be the life and soul of the disciple, and he goes to this extent to prove it to the Mayavadis. And on top of that, spreads the Sankirtan movement, which was the whole goal of his incarnation too. And I think it's a great story.
Thank you.
It's interesting here how it's said that in such a state of mind. Prabhu, could you go back?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
In such a state of mind, one can chant the Vedanta philosophy
Yeah, that was
or
good.
the holy name of the Lord.
Yeah.
So in a humble state of mind, one could be chanting the Bhagavad Gita constantly.
Right. I think that was Sridhar Maharaj that said, humbleness is next, is like praying.
It's like what? It's like
Praying. Love of God.
praying.
Like praying or praying?
Prema.
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 Prem.
Love of God.
The way I interpret this statement, in such a state, let's see, what did you read? What did you just quote?
In such a humble state of mind, one can chant the Vedanta as well as.
No, the part that he highlighted. I don't think that was it. What was the part?
Oh,
About the Vedic philosophy.
That one can chant Vedanta Sutra or the holy name, right? If one is humble.
yes.
Yeah, so similarly, I was thinking that unless I become humble, it's going to be difficult for me to always be chanting the Bhagavad Gita. That a sign that the way I'm interpreting it is that my ability to be able to be absorbed in the Bhagavad Gita and refreshing my memory with the shlokas, etc., would be in proportion to how humble I am. And if I'm puffed up, then I'm not going to be reciting it very often. That's how I'm getting it.
Or you may be reciting it, but you may not be receiving realization.
Yes.
You're more into the prestige. You're more into being noticed as someone who knows stuff.
That's how I kind of see it too. You know, in order to be able to, at least for me personally, there was the time where I kind of fell off of chanting and whatnot, and pretty much any of the knowledge I kind of started to memorize from the Gita was gone. And it kind of went to prove that if I'm not chanting my rounds and we don't do our best to stay humble, we're not going to be able to gain the realizations that we could gain from Bhagavad Gita, Caitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Aishapanasad, Brahma Samhita, etc. All the books that Prabhupada gave us.
Shikarani, you're the only one that hasn't read tonight.
I have one comment regarding one of the last sentences.
Wait. Yes, Siddhanta Prabhu, go ahead.
If you could bring the text back up, I can tell you what
I
I'm
didn't read
referring
either,
to.
but that's okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, regarding the sense, the Lord also wanted to teach that a serious student of transcendental science should exactly follow the words of his spiritual master. In this regard, Ranchor was asked by Prabhupada to answer a particular question that was asked in one darshan. And then Ranchor said, he said, when you chant Krishna's names, you approach Krishna. Prabhupada immediately interrupted and said, no, when you chant Krishna's names, you are with Krishna. So take these lessons accordingly and repeat accordingly.
You're with Krishna as opposed to?
Approaching Krishna.
Approaching.
Okay.
Yeah. And humbleness means to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Can you hear me now? Am I choppy again?
We're not broken up.
Okay, one night at 10:30 p.m., 1975, Srila Prabhupada called us into his room, Hanuman and myself. And
where
Hanuman
was this? Where was this?
Mexico City.
Okay.
Hanuman said, come. I was in Los Angeles, and he said, come, Prabhupada is going to be in Mexico City. And it had been many years, you know, the forgive me, which was my luck because initiation person. But anyhow, Prabhupada, he said, Hanuman asked, when Srila Prabhupada, when you leave, who's going to be guru?
When you leave, is that what you said? When you leave?
Yes. Yeah. When you depart.
Yes.
And Prabhupada got serious. He says, I want all of you to come to that platform. And then he got serious. He counted with his hands, you know, like we do count Gayatri. He counted to 10. He said, I only was with my spiritual master in his presence no more than 10 times. But then he got very serious and he looked at us like, he said, but I follow all his instructions. I said,
I follow all these instructions, and what? Your voice breaks up.
That's what made me successful.
Because I followed all the instructions of my guru.
Yes. So this last paragraph, when we're talking about instructions, and that, you know, when we learn what's humbleness, really was Hanuman humble? I mean, he burned Lanka. You know, be more tolerant, more humble. But you know that we misunderstand sometimes what humbleness means.
I'm also thinking that to become a spiritual master also requires the greatest humility, whereas others might think, oh, if he wants to become a spiritual master, he must be really puffed up. But what I'm getting, if Prabhupada stated to Hanuman and you, this isn't recorded anywhere except in your personal experience, right?
Eyewitness account.
Siddhanta took the recordings. There was some funny moments about it, but
the actual conversations that
was that recorded, that actual conversation? No, it was 10:30. Maybe Sruti Kirti was around.
Okay.
Maybe he heard it.
Anyway, Siddhanta has it.
Witness account.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Hanuman and I and Srila Prabhupada in this
Yeah.
room. It's 10:30 p.m.
And I can validate that Nrihari does not lie.
You've been very nice to me.
No, I'm being truthful.
So Sikarani, you're the only one that didn't read. Would you like to finish?
Sure. Yeah.
Where are we now? Okay, the word Vedanta means the last word.
The word Vedanta means the last word of Vedic knowledge, which is to understand Krishna. As Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Vedas cha sarvair aham eva vedya. By all the Vedas, I am to, one second. Yeah. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. When one actually comes to understand the Vedanta, he comes to know Krishna and his relationship with Krishna. And one who understands Krishna understands everything. Moreover, the knower of Krishna is always engaged in his transcendental loving service. As the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam parvatate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samhanvita. I am the source of everything, and everything emanates from me. One who perfectly knows this fully engages in my transcendental loving service.
Acyutananda, anything from you, Prabhu?
Well, it's a long story that the Bhakti Siddhanta told about the king and the monkeys.
Oh, yes, you said you were going to tell us that one.
And so,
please do.
So it's about accepting the guru and accepting his words, even though they may sound beyond our belief. But there was a king who captured some monkeys to play with his children, the princes and princesses in the garden. And the older monkey said, after a few months, he said, "We must leave this place. We're in danger." There is, and he told us this complex story. The king also has sheep, and one of the rams, every day he barges into the kitchen to eat the grains, and the cooks drive him out with fire sticks, torches. Now one day his wool is going to catch fire, and one day he's going to catch fire and run into the stable, and one day that stable is going to catch fire and the horses will be burned. And the cure for horse burns is monkey fat. And the king will kill us. Oh, you old monkey goats, we're having nice food here, we're protected, we're going to go back in the forest and have to gather our own. No, you're an old fool. And so the old monkey left them, and then the ram barged into the kitchen. They drove him out. His wool caught fire. He ran into the stable. The horses were burned, and the monkeys were killed to get their fat. So don't think your guru has become old and senile.
So, and this story comes from where?
Bhakti Siddhanta.
Thank you.
The Harmonist magazine.
Yeah, we read that.
Divija Garanga Prabhu, you brought some excerpt from an essay entitled Kali by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In what context are you, what was this connected to?
I think it was Loka Guru Prabhu was mentioning about, anyway, the subject of the imitation of a good thing is also a good thing. It's a bit of a different perspective.
Did you want to read this?
You want
mental tendency, or do you want me? You're going to read it?
If you like.
When the mental tendency is dragged away by endeavors for brothels, wine, or gold, then the Kali inflicted jiva becomes bewildered about his duty, and while trying to save himself from the flaws of his own character, he takes shelter of different paths. Through logic, he tries to show that if one does not take some amount of alcohol or meat, human strength cannot be maintained. He says in many ways that going to prostitutes, etc., is an unavoidable human sin. He collects money by displaying deceitful bhakti, presenting Harinam Kirtan as a good deed. He creates a group to perform Hari Sankirtan with an aim to nullify plagues, epidemics, and other sins. In this way, to achieve selfish ends, he goes on performing kirtan in the cities, nagar, kirtan, etc. The karmis engage in activities for gaining money by taking a cunning approach and saying, Krishnarpanam ashtu, may this be an offering to Krishna. The atheists establish an imaginary Brahman within void or within something which is almost void and wish to show themselves in this way as religious. Such deceitful activities are happening every day in the world. Again, their saying is, even imitating good things is also good. By presenting such advice as this, they are increasing the number of deceitful, quote unquote, Vaishnavas, and in so doing, they are serving Kali. Kali is at the root of all disturbances. Only those who can reject Kali's domination and continue can become pure Vaishnavas. For our individual benefit, we will consider what is Kali's domination. I have a question here, because in another place, Srila Prabhupada mentions that when there was a plague in Calcutta, they did a big Harinam, and that ended the plague. Another time, Prabhupada mentions there was a drought and lots of Harinam, or maybe this is a Caitanya Lila, and the rains came. So, but here it's being criticized that if someone is doing Harinam to nullify the effects of a plague or an epidemic or sin.
But in that episode described, Prabhupada puts a disclaimer on that. He says, well, yes, this will show the potency of the name, but it shouldn't be that we use the name, we serve the name.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So if devotees go out and do Harinam to nullify the effects of the current corona, is that not serving the holy name? Because
no. No, he said if the devotees go out to do Harinam to give Krishna to others, the byproduct of that may be that the plague subsides.
Okay.
Or that it may start to rain if there's a drought.
But if we go out with the intention to do Harinam to get rid of the virus instead of serving the name, it's a different intention. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Also, we run the risk if it doesn't rain, you'll say, "Oh, your mantra is useless." Nishpalamata.
Yeah, that would be word.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for the evening? Or
I had one from earlier.
Yeah. Usually Siddhanta likes to leave at 9:30, and I'm trying to wrap up too, but let's just keep it to a couple of, okay, go ahead, make your point.
Yeah, just my question about when we were bringing up the point of somebody saying Prabhupada was a Shudra. That would that be an ideal point? In the Nectar of Instruction, it's mentioned that you can use anger and you can use it in a proper way directed at blaspheme the Vaishnavas. Would that be an applicable, I guess, way to use it?
As disciples, we hold our hands over our ears and run away, or we can just remind them what Shastra says about regarding the Vaishnava as some caste. We are above every caste.
Or we can
Nahang vipranacha narapatir napi Vaishya no Shudra. Nahang varni nacha kriyapatir vanasto jyotirva. Lord Chaitanya says, I am not a Brahmacharya Vaishya Shudra, I'm not a Brahmachari Grihastha Vanaprastha or Sannyas. So what's your point?
Or we can cut his tongue out, but that's certainly
not.
That's
that was one of the things.
Yeah.
That's sort of the Muslim system of.
I like that.
But that's actually the Muslim system.
I always keep a pair of scissors there. See, I always got the scissors there.
Who should we use a knife?
Never for always carry scissors.
Exactly.
Like Bhaktisiddhanta also, the Babajis and Goswamis in Radhakund were saying that Raghunath Das Goswami was not born Brahmin, so we don't accept him as an acharya. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, you all devotees can just hold your ears and run away. But he actually said, I will sit here and fast until they come and debate me. And he went there in a car. He said, because I am representing the acharya of the Gaudiya school now, because we didn't have that. But they say, oh, you shouldn't take sannyas, and this is not. Well, but Lord Chaitanya took sannyas to give this credentials. Similarly, by the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, there was no acharya, pontiff, if you will. And so as acharya, sitting on the Vyasasana, I must defend Raghunath Das Goswami, and they can't call him by caste.
And remember, he considered it an offense to his guru. Our line, we all condemn all gurus.
He's got a sound problem there, you know?
Jivan Mukta Prabhu, we didn't hear from you very much. Do you have any thoughts from what we read this evening? Before we wrap up.
I'd like to say one thing, and I have to go.
Yes, please.
Maybe just before Jivan Mukta unmutes. I just wanted to acknowledge Sika Rani. I really appreciate her pronunciation of the Sanskrit mantras, on the Sanskrit verses. I'm really impressed with her reading of the shlokas.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
That comes from being in a Sharma family.
Yes.
Something.
Everybody should learn the Devanagari alphabet. That'll tighten up your pronunciation. You should. I just said something. That'll tighten up your pronunciation.
Tikarami, is both your mother and father, are they both encouraging you to keep up the good name of the Sharma family, the Brahminical name, or are they more concerned with you being a successful IT tech?
I do not listen to them.
I've never heard that before.
They know that I will not listen to them. But yeah, my parents are also like, I won't say they are spiritual, but they are religious people. So they never stop me. But they always tell me, don't be a sannyasi. Like, they're like, if you have to become a sannyasi, first get married and then become a sannyasi.
Women don't take sannyas in Vedic culture. They become a widow. They can be a widow. They can shave their head.
Yeah.
No,
but like,
we got Ganga Mata Goswamini.
Yes.
That's that was Sunday.
Yes.
Yes. The wonderful story.
Anyway, Haribo, y'all.
Thank you for your contribution to Nanta Prabhu. Hope to see you Wednesday, Krishna willing. You don't.
No, I sent you a message. I'm driving up north on Wednesday. I'm collecting more memories for the Prabhupada series.
Oh, nice. Who are you going to see?
Nice.
Janardhan Swami, he used to be
Pancha Dravida. Yeah.
Oh yes, Jai.
No kidding.
Pancho.
And
he was in Mexico City at the same year, the same time.
Right.
That's the little temple that I go to. It's near my house. Yeah. The Caitanya Saraswat Mat.
Where is this?
It's in SoCal, in Santa Cruz County.
Oh, okay.
You have some memories of Prabhupada you want to share? While I'm up there, I'll be interviewing him at 10 a.m. Kumkum is coming to.
Sadly, I didn't have much contact.
No, Nanda Patni, please tell us right now, how old were you when you went and you saw Srila Prabhupada and George Harrison, and what was it that George presented the Krishna book to Prabhupada? Where was this?
It was
What year?
in the middle of London in a place called Kensington Town Hall, and I was 17.
And how did you know to go there?
Well, because as a schoolgirl, I used to have to take the train across London, and I used to go to Oxford Street. And in 1968, 69, I used to see the devotees doing Harinam on Oxford Street. So I knew about them. And
What did you think about them doing Harinam? What was your impression?
I was very attracted, but also kind of petrified at the same time. But I was mystified by their ecstasy.
Ah,
I think that's the thing that really got me. And then when George Harrison released the single,
Hare Krishna mantra?
yes, and then it went to the top of the hit parade for about 6 weeks in London. That was a very big deal. So, Hare Krishna mantra was a household name. Everyone knew the Hare Krishnas in London. They were popular actually because it was such a vibrant experimental time culturally. But that was the only time that I actually saw Srila Prabhupada.
So you heard.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you a question before I go.
Mm.
What was how was Prabhupada's interaction with George? Was he kind to him, or was he in that exchange with the book?
Yeah, it was a very powerful night. I mean, I was so young and, it was so long ago, but we're talking about 1970. So, I was kind of in the front row with my Moroccan hippie friends who had dragged me along. And there was a huge kirtan on the stage. There seemed to me to be about 200 devotees.
Wow.
They all come from Europe, all over. And there was a Vyasasan on the stage, and George was there. And this is all I remember, is that he made the presentation of the Krishna book to Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada spoke, and it was an affectionate, very respectful, affectionate appreciation of George, who had paid for it. And that's about all I remember. I mean, it's
all right.
a night.
Maybe you can tell me that story when you're going to be there on Thursday at home?
Yes, I'm around. When are you there?
10 a.m. I interviewed Maharaj.
Okay.
And then Kumkum is coming at 12. She's going to tell Rishabdev stories.
Oh, that's good.
I actually recorded I filmed their wedding, their double wedding in Dallas back in 71. So I talked to her today. So maybe after she speaks, you can come and tell me that story.
Okay. I'm around. I do some pot washing at the temple.
Somebody's got to do it.
I love it.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that only the most sincere devotee will wash the pots. Our godbrother Shukavak is supposed to be in Southern California too. He was studying at Professor Joseph O'Connell, Caitanya Vaishnavism, and he wrote his book, Bhakti Vinod, Modernity, at that time. Do you know of Shukavak, Prabhu, our godbrother? He's a priest in some Hindu temple there in Southern California.
That's an amazing book. That really is a fantastic read. Yeah.
And Mataji, how about Hashapriya? Is he there?
Yes, he is, but he's extremely elusive.
Oh. Well, if you see him, tell him if he wants to share some stories. Be around.
I will. Yes.
Maybe you make some halava for him or something. Tell him you'll have some halava waiting.
Well, he's what I do know is that he is an accountant, and I think he probably, kind of works a 40-hour week.
In an office or in his home?
I think he's probably off-site. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it's just a suggestion. If you see him.
Yeah.
And then what about Navadvip?
I don't see him in that community. there's a very lovely woman devotee. She comes at the weekends called Jivana,
Our god sister?
God sister, who was married to Yudyamanu. And she's a wonderful devotee. And then Sanatani is an older Prabhupada disciple.
There in SoCal as well?
Yes. There's quite a big congregation, as far as I understand it. There's about 200 people.
Wow.
In the congregation here.
Maybe there's a lot of
Dikshavati.
Sorry.
Dikshavati underwent extreme health situations. And I've forgotten her. It's not, what's her husband's name?
Sarvabhavanu.
Sarvabhavanu, yeah. And they've had to be quite reclusive. I mean, yeah.
Well, if you see anybody, you ask them, and I asked two questions mainly. Any lessons that they learned while they were in Prabhupada's association, or any qualities that stood out in their mind that Prabhupada exhibited? Lessons and qualities. Okay?
Good to know.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Haribo.
Maybe you can round a few up. I have a question for you, Nandapatni, and that is that George Harrison went on the Top of the Pops, which is the forerunner of today's current MVT, not
MTV.
MTV, right? And I believe it wasn't just once, but even twice. For the Hare Krishna mantra, he went with the devotees, and maybe even for Govinda Jaya Jaya. Did you see that on Top of the Pops?
Yeah, I did. Yes, they did. I mean, literally, they would come on like before the Who or the Rolling Stones. I mean, I was so young when they were doing that, but people loved them. People loved them because they just didn't know what it was, and it was so mystifying and unique. And
it was authorized by George Harrison. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shyama Sundar was a great wheeler dealer in that regard. I mean, he really knew how to operate and just befriend people and get into situations, and he certainly did that in London. Yeah.
So I've watched almost all the Top of the Pops in order to see if the big devotees were on, because there's a lot of them on YouTube, and I could not find any. And I even contacted the BBC, and they told me that in those days, those movies were recorded on a big wide videotape. And they were very expensive, and very often they would record over them again.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yet there must be at least 50 Top of the Pop shows showing, like you say, the Who, the Rolling Stones, and so forth.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that would be the find of the century, if we could find a movie of George Harrison singing Hare Krishna on stage with the UK Yatra. That would be super.
What year was that?
It's got to be 69, 68, 69 was the kind of heyday. Really, for that. I think it's elaborated in Jamuna Devi's book. I think they go into the dates, and maybe in Shyama Sundar's first volume,
Mukunda's
his memories.
I can take a look.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think they even have, pictures of the 45 single and all that good stuff. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
I go into Beatle groups on Facebook, and I'll bring in quotes from George about Prabhupada, about Krishna. And I tell them, I'll make a quote: "You're not really a true George Harrison fan until you start chanting Hare Krishna."
That's a good one.
Also, when he was passing away, Ravi Shankar's daughter was being interviewed because she was with him.
Anushka.
And they said, "Is he praying?" She said, "Yes, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna."
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Nice. Nice. Because I heard that one time when George went to visit Prabhupada with Ravi Shankar, Prabhupada just talked, Prabhupada sent George off to get the prasadam with the devotees. And Prabhupada didn't talk too much about spirituality to Ravi Shankar, because allegedly Ravi wasn't so much into, they talked about plane flights to India. So I read in one conversation. So it's nice to hear that. Yes.
The one to ask, it would be Nanda Kumar, who was there. Yes, and he talks about the relationship with George and Srila Prabhupada. At one time, this was told to me too by Kula Shekhar Prabhu, and now he's not, but he's a good friend. We lived together a few times. But Nanda Kumar says that how humble George Harrison was, and Prabhupada closer and closer to him. And then when he close, he said, "Come here." He grabbed him and he rubbed his head. So they were very intimate. And actually, Manjali saw this interaction where Prabhupada asked him to sit on his chair.
Who asked who to sit on the chair? Your voice broke up.
Srila Prabhupada asked George to sit on that chair.
Oh.
And George didn't want to. He was very humble in presence. And at that time, you can ask this from Nanda Kumar. He lives here. And at that moment, when George first came to see Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada asked him, "Well, is Ravi here? Is Ravi in London? Tell him to come over." The rest, I'm not sure how it was. Like you said, their conversations perhaps were about a flight or the planes to go to India.
There's a conversation where I guess Nanda Kumar was present there, but Prabhupada was stuffing George, just telling him to take more and more prasadam. George allegedly really liked the cauliflower sabji in sour cream sauce. And Prabhupada telling him to take more and more, and he said, "I'm about to explode." Anyway, we succeeded at doing the Pandav and Nirjala fast, and being in association devotees certainly helps to make the time fly easier. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming together. And Krishna willing, I hope we can continue progressing through chapter 18 on Wednesday evening, same time, same place, same channel.
Yeah. I want to say one thing. Yes. I'm honored to be in the presence of you, all of you, and please accept my most humble obeisances. Baba Tarini was saying how wonderful it is, a few days after last week when we heard, you and the devotees, how wonderful it is. It feels like we are, or you are actually, following Prabhupada's desire. There should be congregation of devotees. The equal-minded, is devotees to discuss these topics, discuss Harikatha. So thank you, Gaura, for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gaura.
Thank you to Acyutananda Prabhu for giving us his time. I mean, I just feel so extremely fortunate. I mean, I don't know who was at that first initiation, but according to Acyutananda Prabhu, most of those devotees, they kind of went on their own and we didn't hear from them again. Although someone mentioned to me, there was one devotee, Karla Pati, and
local guru.
It's here.
No.
Huh?
That must be it.
Oh, we have a devotee here, Prabhupada disciple, Karla Pati, but I'm not sure.
She's not an early devotee.
She's not an early devotee.
He's an old black devote man. Yeah.
But one thing. Okay, Karla Pati. One thing about Acyutananda Prabhu, there is this amazing lecture. Srila Prabhupada talks about Harinam, that everything began with the chanting. He said, my first two disciples that got up and danced were Brahmananda and Acyutananda Prabhu.
If I could just say one last thing, thank you, Gaura, for inviting me. It was think I delayed messaging a bit too long, but for newer devotees like myself, it's great to be able to have this association during pandemic, especially, and much more fortunately with people who can share these intimate stories of Prabhupada, who I never personally got a chance to meet while he was here, but through his instructions and through his disciples, I can actually feel like serving him right in front of me, and I appreciate that.
Jai. Happy you could join us, Connor. I hope you can come back Wednesday.
I will be back Wednesday. I have Wednesday off.
Connor's in
Very
Edmonton.
nice meeting you, Prabhu.
Connor's in
You too, Prabhuji.
Edmonton, Alberta. Okay.
Nice.
Thank you, Baba Tarini.
Hare Krishna.
We want to hear much more from you.
Jai Gora.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Hari
Hari bol.
Hare
Hari
bol.
bol.
Have a great interview with Siddhanta Nandapati. It's going to be great that you're going to be filmed. Super. And try to round up as many Prabhus as you can and God sisters. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.